Welcome to another fine edition of It's a Sports Show. This our 172nd edition. Alongside me, Dolphin Paul. I'm Scott Cray. 172. Can you believe
Unbelievable.
it? This is crazy. We're getting to that.
The years are just piling on.
Wait.
Piling on.
We were talking about that before the show. I mean, 172 shows once a week. No more than once a week, that's for sure. So, I mean, we've been together for like almost 3 years, I'd say. Been together.
Wow. Easy with those words.
Hey,
We got a live audience too, kind of.
yeah, we've got
So
some.
I'm a little nervous. If people can tell I'm a little nervous because a lot of pressure. I mean, we got people.
You look like you're sweating a little. You
I'm
gonna be
sweating
okay?
Just a little bit. I'm fine. I'm fine.
A little hot weather
You
got
like my
to you?
new necklace? Because
I
well,
know. This is
it's a little
Okajima,
blingy.
right? You're doing the Okajima thing?
Well, Okajima, he's got a big plastic one.
He's got a huge... we talked about it the other day. It looks like, something you do in high
hula
school.
hoop, little hula hoop.
Yeah, you like bury him up to their neck in sand, and then you got those little things you just... That's what he
I
wears.
never
He
did
wears
that to
this
my
giant...
friends. Do you do that to your friends?
Well, they weren't my friends.
I'm just trying to
Stay on my good side.
Stay
right?
young. I'm just trying to stay
That's
young.
good.
Bob and weave.
Got a little like, almost Mr. T going on there. So, take care of that, fool. Hey, a couple of things to talk about. We're going to get to basketball, baseball, of course baseball, and of course a little football. Sad news, we found out yesterday, Marquise Hill, for the New England Patriots, has passed away at the age of 24 in a jet skiing accident. Maybe you could fill us in on that as well. Just a tragedy.
Yeah, he was just out with a friend at 8:45 sometime on Sunday night, and he got off the jet ski. They had an accident. They fell off, whatever they were doing, and he died kind of as a hero because he brought her to safety on some type of buoy.
Yep.
But then I guess that's a Lake Pontchartrain, if I'm saying
Yeah,
correct.
I'm not too familiar with it.
That's not like a little pond. That's,
It's a big deal.
supposedly there's a lot of heavy currents there and everything. And the last she saw, unfortunately, he was being pulled away by the current. And, just kind of a freak accident. He just happens to be a football player. And
Not wearing life jackets,
well,
of course. And,
I hate to always,
and not a good swimmer.
pick on something when people die because, obviously, he was a young man, only 24 years old, which is a tragedy within itself. But,
Right.
yeah, in a case like that, on a jet ski, I believe it's a law, at least I think here in Rhode Island, or at least most states, you should have a jet ski because of a couple things. As the Coast Guard pointed out, I think a lot of them might even have like a little beeper on them or something.
Well, they have a few things too, and they have lights on them as well to flash if this happens at night,
Right.
and they have a whistle usually. So, it depends what kind of life jacket you buy. The fact of the matter is, worst case scenario, he's still floating and still alive at this point, and it's kind of a lesson to be learned by everyone. I think that if you kind of, a lot of people like to get on a motorcycle without a helmet, and people take for granted getting on these water sports without a life jacket. And unfortunately, was not a very good swimmer, according to one of his teammates.
Well,
and,
even if you were, by what they said with these currents, it's pretty tough. That's why
Yeah.
it's so important to have a life preserver because, like they said, they can find you even if you don't have it on.
Sure.
It's probably something that maybe could have been prevented. But when these things happen, it's always tough to second guess because you just don't know if we're destined to.
Right.
You just don't know. It's just a sad thing because he's only 24 years old, which is,
Been on the Patriots for the last 3 years, and every player plays a part in the team, and teams are very close, and so it's.
This is kind of a cool thing to say from a football standpoint. He wasn't a big integral part of the Patriots, but
Right.
that's obviously secondary, and I hate to even say that, but
just the same.
it
the
is a
Patriots-
football thing because if it was, God forbid, any other player who, like a Seymour or somebody like
Right.
that, people probably be talking about it a little more. But obviously his life is not less significant than
Sure.
the other players on the Patriots. But
just the same
nonetheless, it's still a tragedy.
The Patriots would be going to camp with heavy hearts because it's someone they're used to
Absolutely.
seeing, and it's a tragedy. I'm sure I
As a
speak
team.
on your behalf when I say our prayers are with his family at this time.
A young man, by all accounts, he helped
Yep.
everybody, and this is, by the people they interviewed and stuff, he's always willing to help somebody else. And
Sure.
not being a strong swimmer, he didn't
Yeah.
bolt for safety himself. He
Tough to
helped
believe
out.
that an athlete would have to succumb to that. So let's talk some other football because I know that if we don't talk some football once every 4 weeks during baseball season,
I'll
it's going to
cry.
be trouble for
I'll
you.
cry. I'll
Michael
break right
Vick,
down in the set.
Michael Vick in a little bit of trouble here, and it's just compounding. It's getting worse and worse. Of course, everyone's been following the story, and we're hearing the dogs that Michael Vick has.
Who let the dogs out? We have some dogs right in the studio. It's unbelievable. We pay a lot of money for our crack staff. And
yes, we do the best we can.
Absolutely.
That was an actual dog that made that noise.
Of course.
One of Mike Vick's dogs. So, involved in some illegal dog fighting, apparently, and this guy's in a bit of trouble now at this point.
Yeah, I think he's a little bit of trouble because as they dig deeper, they realize that he was pretty involved in it, especially even when he was in college.
Yep.
From quote-unquote sources, and they said he was mostly a heavy player in the gambling end of it, and
They went and snagged a bunch of dogs at his home, like 70, 80 dogs or something crazy like that?
Right, but that's not a house that he has his current residence in, but this brings up a whole bunch of other questions.
He has some involvement there.
Well, he has some involvement.
The dude's in trouble. This is serious stuff here.
Yeah,
I know what you're gonna do. You're gonna, Michael Vick, let's twist it around a little and make it seem like it'll go away. This isn't going away. This dude might be in enough trouble to not be starting this season off.
Yeah, he probably would be, but all I'm saying, it's I mean, I don't belong to PETA, but it's dogfighting. It's been around in the Far East for 300 years, and all I heard about on Sunday was Michael Vick and dogfighting.
Not illegal in the Far East, my friend.
I'll be honest with you, and I'm not
a lot of
I'm
animal
not
rights
just saying
activists,
this.
so you better be careful what you say.
I'm not just saying this for our show, but there's some racial overtones here with.
I don't know about that.
Well, because dogfighting is predominantly, not predominantly, I think more of an African American thing. So
I'm not so sure about that. I'm sure that if Tom Brady, just to use a white guy in the NFL, got busted for this sort of thing, I think that most definitely...
They'd say just a few dogfighting Tom Brady. He's a good guy.
No, not a chance. He'd be in just as much trouble. This is a big thing, and
Well, I think it's big enough where he has to, this brings up the old adage of professional athletes, who they hang with.
Yep.
All of a sudden they get a lot of money. I mean, who they associate themselves with, because all this stuff comes to light. I think that's the big lesson to be learned here is, you can't rent your house to a cousin, a friend, or stuff that's doing these type of, illegal activities
right.
or doing things they shouldn't be doing. You need to know every part of your life. And Mike Vick at this point should be mature enough to know that, especially in NFL being under a microscope. How much they'll find out of his involvement in the dogfighting remains to be seen. But, I mean, is he really going to... I just can't see him be going to jail or not start. I don't...
As they dig deeper, they find more and more. So who knows what they're going to end up finding with Michael Vick. I say good riddance. Who cares about the Michael Vick scenario throughout the NFL season? I just assume he not play.
Well, I just was kind of sick of hearing it on Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Michael Vick, dogs. I'm just tired of hearing about it. It's dog fighting. I'm not making light of the subject. I mean,
gotta love the animals,
they're
man.
pit bulls. They're vicious pit bulls. It's not like they had a
Gotta
whole bunch of
love the
poodles
animals.
biting each other in the rear end.
That might be a new sport. Rear end biting poodles. That's outstanding. That sounds a little more like Tom Brady to me than actual bulldogs.
White dogs and little chihuahuas fighting.
Can we leave football now and enter the sport that truly matters in May? I almost said June.
All right,
the end of May.
Let's leave football.
Can you say, ready? Boston Red Sox. Now, the only thing is, I'm about to follow this up with 13.5 game lead. No. It's an 11.5 game lead over the next best team, which does not happen to be the New York Yankees. Man, the Yankees are tanking.
Boy, I mean, a couple things. The Yankees are tanking, and Boston is just on fire.
They're on a high. They can't get down.
The best
at this
team in
point.
baseball right now. 11.5 game lead
over Baltimore.
And we're not even at the end of May, which is incredible. I mean,
here's how I'm going to say this directly to Jen, who's our, control room / Yankee lover. Okay, Jen, I'm looking at the standings. 11.5 game lead over Baltimore. 12 game lead over Toronto, and 13.5 games over Tampa Bay, and then New York. How do you like that?
That brings me
Last
to something.
place again. You got something to say about Jen?
No.
She'll shut your mic
No,
off.
because I heard her father call last week. I'm not going to even...
Her and her father called you last week?
No, her father called last week because she was in a bad mood. That's what she told me before the set. She said, you got me in trouble.
Oh, really?
But, my good friend Scott over at the Score, 790 The Score, he has an update every day for Yankee fans about the American League East. I think we should make that a staple of our show every week. We give an AL East standings, although most people will know, and by the time they see the show, it'll be
it's always
different.
good to hear, though, from a Boston Red Sox fan at home. They probably love as many people as possible.
Because let's face it, there's no big series.
Right.
It's kind of, I usually say that baseball is boring.
Right.
And I know Red Sox fans aren't going to say it's boring, but There's no controversy.
Well,
they're cruising.
Right.
So it's boring in terms of good.
Right. Now, and here's why the Red Sox are cruising so much. People are talking about the lead they have and going with stats and numbers and saying, teams this late in the season or this early in the season that have had this kind of lead have not lost their division. Keep something in mind that people aren't thinking of. You can sit Big Papi for a couple of days because his hamstrings are bothering him. You can put what's his name on the DL, the pitcher who is escaping my mind right now. Beckett. You can put him on the DL because you can afford 15
Who's coming
days.
back tonight as we speak on Tuesday.
This lead provides them with so much cushion that they can do these sorts of things, and it is going to pay dividends come September when you make that final push, not to win the division because we're looking good right now, but more to rest you guys so you're going into the playoffs rolling. That's what I like about this lead, is that you have this cushion to be able to do this.
Okay, but is it over?
No, no, you can't say it's over because as bad as
I'm just asking the question.
Are the Red Sox going to win the division? I certainly hope so, and if I throw my heart out of it, yeah, they probably will. I mean, it's going to be very difficult to overcome.
Because a lot of fans are saying that it's absolutely over. So
I wouldn't go that far because anything can happen. Let's face it. Who would think that the Yankees winning the division last year would look as crappy as they do right now? It could happen to the Red Sox. You never know. Injuries, can happen at any time. Fact of the matter is, if they stay healthy, no, I don't think they'll lose this type of lead. Now, everybody's concern is, will the Yankees make a push? Hey, folks, the Yankees are making a push to get the wild card right now. They're not even going to, they just want to get in the playoffs.
Making a push. They're not,
Well, when I say making a push, I'm looking forward at Roger
the only reason we're saying
back.
that is because the Yankees are direct rival of the Red Sox. You got Baltimore, you got Toronto, you got teams that, and other.
Who aren't very good either,
the Detroit Tigers are 29-21.
Yeah.
They would be half a dozen games ahead of the Yankees at this point. So,
right.
Seattle is 25-22. Oakland is 24-25. All would be ahead.
I'm just saying, if there's a chance where the Yankees get all their pitching healthy, can they make a push? It might be too late at this point, but there is still, you would know better than anyone else, plenty of baseball to play at this
112
point.
games. Long season.
Still to go yet. And, 50 games down, so you're what, 33% of the way through the season?
I mean, if you ran out the way the Red Sox would have to play,
yep.
They'd have to completely tank it.
They would.
And the Yankees would
Has
have
it
to go an
happened before?
unbelievable
Yes.
tear. I heard Kurt Schilling on the radio this morning. He said, Roger's going to get I think 19 starts, if that.
Right.
And he said, even if he went 19-0, Schilling said we'd
still 19 games.
Right, which is crazy, and I don't think Roger's going to help him one bit.
It's funny.
I said marginal.
Right.
I said marginal. I'm still holding to that. And good, because you want to come to the Yankees, go to the Yankees, win a championship. Good. Now you're going to a team who's looking way up.
And it feels good to see someone like Roger go to the Yankees and then what? You know what I mean? You wish him unsuccess at that point. I wonder if Big Georgie Porgy Steinbrenner knew that they were going to lose as many games as they have since signing Roger. Would they have still signed him? Because they've buried themselves in such a deep hole now. That's a good question
because you're essentially throwing $20 million out the window.
Because will it even provide him?
What's Clemens
they didn't
doing
pay
for
him
you?
just to have fans show up. How about them booing Torrey off the field over the weekend? Torrey and Cashman both under fire. And I tried to squeeze Jen into a little side bit earlier, and it didn't work. I think one of them are gone within the next couple of weeks at this point. You got to think.
Well, I mean,
they need a change of scenery, and how much good is it going to do? I don't know, but they got to do something.
Here's the problem with Torrey. Clemens is a big fan of Torrey, so.
Well, that's what they're saying is maybe Clemens came on saying that Torrey better stay on board too, which means Cashman's next in line then.
Well, I mean, this is all ridiculous. Now they want to blame somebody. I mean, Cashman could probably take a little bit of a hit because I guess the Yankees' depth is
none.
Is at a question here. There's no depth. The bullpen is terrible.
Their pitching is
now,
just awful.
Now, whether that's all Cashman or not, I don't know. If indeed he set this whole plan up, then yeah, he should take the fall. But Steinbrenner loves the big names and the Clemens and the Breus. Well, you know what? You got a lot of big names, but you got no wins. So there is a fault here in how they're constructed. They wanted to get younger, but Yankee fans don't want to wait.
Right.
So they're really not younger. I mean, they have a couple prospects, but guys with contracts, big contracts, and Damon's not playing well. Robbie Cano, who everybody thought was an ex-Greg's thing, is not playing well. So I mean, they got some problems, and they get the pitchers into the 4th, 5th, 6th inning.
Right.
and their bullpen is terrible. So,
but if they had the pitching, right, at least decent pitching, which they don't
well,
have.
with that lineup, they'd have to be good.
That's what feels so good from Red Sox Nation, is to see these big names, Giambi. Hey, the best player.
Giambi, he's a story within himself.
Right, and I'm not even going to say arguably the best player in baseball. I'm going to say the best player in baseball, A-Rod, on a team that is in last place right now. You know what I mean?
Well,
so he's finally producing. He must be frustrated.
Well, he started off, he carried them early.
Yes, he did.
Imagine if he wasn't on that, one of the most unbelievable Aprils in baseball history. It'd even be worse. And now he's cooled off a little bit because he couldn't keep up that pace anyway.
Right.
So now they're struggling big time.
You know, Jeter in the mix, you know, is still doing his thing. He just finally broke, I believe, a 19-game hitting streak. So he's doing his thing, but it's getting him nowhere. And you go to, you know, they had, I don't know if you heard this on the radio, but they had like a 48-minute meeting over the weekend.
Yeah, they had a 1-hour meeting before the game. Didn't do anything.
Didn't do any good. They still lost 7-2. But can you imagine being in on one of those meetings with all of those egos and trying to put them in check?
And I think what they were saying is they all wanted to get together to watch a taped version of It's a Sports Show. They wanted to make sure everybody was around, who was going to bring the popcorn, soda, stuff like that.
They just couldn't find a sports show that gave the Yankees any tips on how to play better baseball.
Enough about the Yankees. Let's talk about the Sox.
Yeah, hey, the Red Sox are on fire. A highlight to me on this Red Sox team right now, I pumped Mike Lowell because, you know, I've been pumping him for a couple of years now. I've been pumping his stats for a couple of years now. But Kevin Youkilis on a roll. I'm going to let that go over my head.
Yeah.
Kevin
Keep
Youkilis.
going quick.
Kevin Youkilis on, what's he on now? A 19-game hitting streak? You have
19-game hitting streak. He's batting .353, which is unbelievable.
That's ridiculous. And how about him huffing out and in the Parker, chugging as hard as he could, and we were talking about it before the show. Frenchie wasn't sure, but he thinks they were saying, what, 10 years, Frenchie? And it was, the Dirt Dog himself that did it last. So, you know, obviously Fenway Park, not a place you can really leg out and in the Parker. It just happened this way. And Youkilis, we don't associate Youkilis with speed at all. So
and him and Pedroia before the game we're kind of joking around as to who's the fastest player. So
Frenchie was telling us that story, that they were busting chops as to who the fastest player.
We spoke about Youkilis.
It's like two turtles in a race, for crying out loud.
We spoke about Youkilis before, and I told you I thought this guy would never be more than a utility player.
Right.
So far, I'm
he's
dead wrong.
Remember him starting, you know, a couple of years ago and having all that potential, and everybody was saying, get him into the lineup, this guy's got potential, and we were like, nah, you know.
Yeah, he looked like he got a hit here and there. I thought he was going to be like a, what's the second baseman they used to have there a couple years ago? Went down to Pawtucket back and forth a whole bunch of times.
And you play a little of everything.
Yeah, he was kind of a utility guy. So I said,
Maloney.
Exactly, Maloney, right, from PC. So I thought he'd be like a Maloney, help out, you know, but I never thought he'd be a big hitter, but man.
Look at him now.
How about a bargain? How about a bargain? How much money are they saving with this guy? This guy's playing tremendous.
At a corner position where that is where your power comes from, you know, and this guy's putting up average, but he's putting up decent power numbers too. But more importantly, that first base position is one of your most expensive positions in baseball. So when you say bargain, not just a bargain compared to, you know, what he's doing, but a bargain at the position he's playing too, to put up those numbers. And really, I think kind of stepping up to, you know, be a little bit of a leader in this clubhouse too. Mike Lowell doing the same.
Well, they got a lot of parts. They got a lot of good parts. I mean, he's obviously a big part, a guy who probably most people didn't expect him to be doing this well at this point. Will he cool off or not? Who knows?
Right.
I mean, you know, as we taped the show on Tuesday, last night, Curt Schilling came back with a solid outing.
He was ticked after that last outing, and he had something to prove, I think.
Yeah, no, listen, he can come back. That's a good thing about him. He's got it, you know what I mean? He's got the it factor where he knows what's up. I mean, he knows when he has a bad outing, he has to come back.
Right.
And we talked about this last week. I think that's what you're going to get a lot from him is, you know, you're going to
innings.
You're not going to have, it's not going to be the old dominant Curt every game.
Right.
So I
he'll be on and get off again,
right.
But he'll always eat up innings, which is great for the bullpen when you need that sort of thing. And let's not forget, Curt Schilling is fighting for a contract here. This is a contract year for him, and whether or not he comes back to the Red Sox or not is unimportant. The dude wants his money, and he's got something to prove this year that he's not too old to perform very high at a major league level. So he's got to put things together and have an outstanding year.
I mean that still remains to be seen from my point of view. I mean, how much money do you give this guy?
Somebody's going to pay him.
Probably if somebody's real desperate, like you talk about the Red Sox. I mean,
still a 2.30 3 guy at the worst. You're not talking back of the rotation type guy.
Yeah, but I mean,
here.
I can't see anybody giving him a multi-year deal at this point. It just
Because of his age. Well, he might only be looking at a couple of years. But
well, even a couple of years, that's a lot. I mean, if you're talking, a couple of years at maybe 10 to 12 mil, which, God bless him, he can earn that great of a living, but I mean, you really going to pay
with
this
the
guy
lack of pitching in
15
Major League
million
Baseball,
or more?
yes.
I mean,
with the lack of pitching in Major League Baseball right now, they will take a veteran. People will take a veteran.
How about Buchholz down in Portland?
Yeah.
I mean, he's a guy the Sox are looking at who ironically pitched against Roger Clemens, and the quote that's going around now that that's becoming kind of a famous quote. The scout said, "Hey, I think the younger guy, they got the wrong pitcher up in Boston tonight."
Sure. Yeah.
Speaking of Clay Buchholz, so the Red Sox, I mean, not only are they got it going good now.
Yep.
I mean, they got Matsusaka tied up. They got some young players. They got some prospects.
Matsusaka, we could talk about
Ellsbury
him.
down in Pawtucket, Buchholz as a pitcher. So, I mean,
it's such a
things
different,
are looking up.
It's an
in
opposite
Red Sox
scenario of 2 things. It's an opposite scenario of what the Yankees have right now. We talked about their lack of depth. The Red Sox have plenty now and in the future. And it's also in direct contrast to what we've seen over the last 5 years leading up to this point.
I mean, the Yankees have had it all over the Red Sox for the past.
Well, I mean, as far as the Red Sox and their farmhands, we haven't
the Red
had
Sox
a
would
very
go
good.
the Red Sox would go for all the Roger Clemens types.
Right.
I mean, you'd bring in these guys that were like 38 years old.
Right.
You trade off a prospect, and the guy would pitch okay for the stretch. The Red Sox would miss the playoffs or lose in the first round, and the guy would be useless. So now it is kind of a change. I think the Yankees, they need to probably retool this whole thing, and I bet you it'd be interesting to see what the Yankees do next offseason. Steinbrenner, he's going to get some.
Steinbrenner might retire at that point.
If I was a pitcher in Japan, I'd be practicing.
Ready to roll in some dough, baby.
Absolutely.
Frenchie, how much time do we have left?
8 minutes.
8 minutes? Wow, that's more than I thought. I thought he was going to say like 2 minutes, which would have been
unbelievable.
Just enough time to talk Celtics. But you want to extend on?
Absolutely.
Start talking Celtics now. Last week we didn't get to talk about.
I thought we were going to extend the baseball.
No, I was saying extend our Celtics talk. But if you want to talk more baseball, believe me, I'm ready to go toe to toe with you. So talk. What do you?
No, I mean, I think we've covered a lot of things. I mean, I think
it is what it is right now.
Yeah.
The Red Sox are like we
cruising.
haven't seen.
I just don't think people should just. I don't think it's over.
Right.
But I'm not
certainly
worried. I
looks
wanted to
that-
say
yes.
that. I'm not worried. It's there's no any type of small panic
And you
whatsoever.
know why? People, not everybody thinks it's over, but for those of us who are like us and say, hey, it's not over yet, it's because we know in the back of our heads, we're so used to not winning the division and having the Yankees. How about this? Don't forget the Red Sox finished 3rd place last year in the division. The Yankees, at best, may end up doing the same thing. So who would ever think that the Yankees and Red Sox would come to this where in back-to-back seasons, neither team finishes 1-2.
Yeah, that's a good point. I just think the comfort level is the pitching, number one, and we've talked about that for years. Pitching, number one, and the way the team is constructed, it doesn't look like, and again, I joke with baseball being a long season, it doesn't look like they could go on any type of prolonged streak.
No.
And
they have so much leeway right now.
And the Yanks had this 12-game stretch.
Yes.
Which the writers were calling an important stretch against some good teams. They went 4-8. So,
and the Yankees, I believe, start a 7-game road trip at this point too. So it's not like, and it was mentioned on the radio. I want to talk about the road trips. I think it was Scott that might have said this, that when a team comes back from a road trip, that first home game, sometimes you end up taking a loss or it's a close one because the players seem to be tired. I'm sure.
Right.
Boy, they came back from that Texas road trip. It didn't stop them at all. They just kept on rampaging, and they're just on such a roll right now. It's hard to see them.
But we'll keep you updated every week with the AL East standing, especially if Jen is in the audience.
The up-and-coming team, the Tampa Bay Devils.
All right, now we're going to end the show on kind of a downer. The Boston Celtics, ping pong balls.
Last show was. We were shooting about an hour before the ping pong balls are going to drop. Ping pong balls. Hey, there's 2 of you here. A pair of ping pong balls. We couldn't do the show any later, so we had to shoot it just before the lottery. And we were talking about the ramifications if they didn't get a 1-2. And lo and behold, they finally get into the top 5, and what happens? They get the 5. which to
They're
me,
cursed, just like my Dolphins. I had to get an NFL thing in there real quick.
Dolphins, who?
No, but that's unbelievable. I was watching the draft. I was all psyched up. I'm like, the draft, the selection, the ping pong lottery, whatever the heck you want to call it. I'm going, yeah, come on, ping pong balls. It's exciting. I mean, this could just change the Celtics' future. Just like everybody else.
Junk.
When that Boston thing came up at 5, my mouth just dropped.
And they cut to Ainge and Doc.
That was
and their faces look pitiful, even though later they were like, hey, we'll make the best of it.
They said the chances of that happening the way it did with Portland and Milwaukee and everything were 1 in 544.
Can you imagine that?
I mean, that's just something. The Celtics had a better chance than Seattle and Portland combined of getting number 1, and they came up 5th. I mean, I'm sorry,
So essentially,
this is what we want to get to. What do you think of this system? I think it sucks.
According to lottery odds, the Celtics actually won the lottery. Then, yeah, you could say sucks.
I mean, it's just terrible. There's no way. I know.
It's not bad apples though, because the Celtics got the 5 pick. This was never brought up prior to. All the talk leading into this lottery was whether the Celtics could get the 1 or 2. Well, yes.
Everybody obviously knew this was a possibility, but how can the number 1 and number 2 worst teams in the league get number 4 and 5 pick?
I don't buy that.
That's just stupid. It doesn't work out in the NBA. In football, if you lose the most amount of games, you get the top pick.
I don't buy it.
There should be some type of system, where there should be some type of tweaking where teams can't tank the rest of the season or whatever. I mean, this is just stupid.
It's a hard line
It's not just a self-stop up Memphis.
Yeah, same thing. But you know what? It all still comes down to how the team is managed and how the team is coached. You still need to make decisions prior to this lottery situation. The lottery shouldn't make or break a team.
Yeah, but unlike football, where, you might have a number 1 pick, a number 2 pick that might be a bust. The number 12 and 13 might be a great player. And there's been some very, very good players, Dwayne Wade, Paul Pierce, that have gone obviously past 3 or 4.
Yes.
Some years, like this year, there's 2 guys there, especially one who most people consider a franchise player. And in the past, franchise players like a Tim Duncan, like guys like that, have changed the face of a franchise. Now you get the worst team in the league. How about this stat? In the past 20 years, there's only 6 teams that have won the NBA championship.
Right.
Now, wouldn't you want a little more parity than that? 6 teams in 20 years?
Maybe they do have to work on going the NFL
it is sour
route.
grapes because we're Celtics fans.
Of course.
But here we were.
The number 2 pick, nobody would be bringing this up.
We were talking about, the Celtics, take Paul Pierce out. They should lose. For what? They should have won more games.
Well, it is what it is. They got the pick they got, so now what? We spoke about last week, if they don't get beyond the 3 pick, is it time for Paul Pierce to get traded? Should we keep Paul Pierce at this point?
And then what?
It's not going to do any good to have him, so why not get rid of him?
Maybe they can trade that number 5 pick. Maybe that center from China will be. I don't know. I mean, maybe they could get a good player, but I mean, obviously the prize at the end of the rainbow was a guy like a Greg Oden, which they had a great chance of coming up with. It didn't happen. And they end up at number 5, which I just think it's ridiculous. I think a team that ends up with the 2nd worst record in the league should have no more. Nothing more or lower than like a 3rd pick. I just
like you said,
they end up number 5 in Portland now. Portland, boy, they're sitting there with Greg Oden. They're going to end up pretty good for a while.
Yeah.
Again, in the West, the East becomes weaker in the NBA.
And we won't be talking about Portland in the lottery draft next year, whereas we will still be talking about the Boston Celtics. So say the Boston Celtics next year end up with the 3 pick. Now you got a 3 and a 5 in 2 years. Do you mean to tell me that you can't do something with your team after having 2 top 5 picks in 2 years? That's what I mean by it coming down to managing. You have to manage this team still, just the same. But you're looking at me cross-eyed like, there's no hope.
I agree with you. I mean, it's not like they're going to be the worst team in the league, but when you're that,
they shouldn't be.
I mean, you get a guy like Oden, and now you're talking. You're possibly looking at a championship or 2 down the road. I mean, I just think he's that type of a franchise player. 1 or 2.
Draft.
After that,
next year there might not be an Oden. There might not be the prize number 1.
Well, that's why this year it was.
And it went to someone else. Get over it, Celtic Nation.
I just think the whole system in the NBA is ridiculous.
I just think back on how
because
we
of the
wasted
salary
all that
cap,
time.
because you can't trade players, you can't. Free agency is tough because of the Larry Bird exemption and stuff like that.
Yep.
I just think it's ridiculous.
Got about 30 seconds to go, so make sure you join us. It's a sports show at yahoo.com. Keep those emails coming. And, of course, YouTube, keyword IASS. You can hear all our blabbermouthing at that time. And want to thank Frenchie and Jen and Kurt for helping us out on this show today. And we'll see you next week, right?
I think so. I should be here.
I think you should dress in green next week. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you next week.
It's a wrap.
Kind of angry, aren't you? Throwing stuff around. I guess that's a wrap.